So I used to believe that the good part of life was always going to come later. Later, later, later. That there was going to be some moment in time when my life would be totally fixed and everything would be smooth sailing and I would be happy, I would be awakened, everything would be perfect. And, I could just relax. There'd be no problems anymore. And I was just constantly moving towards that ideal, that idea, that story. And then something changed. And I want to talk about that today because the old way that I used to orient to life was this idea that this moment was meant to be used to get somewhere else. That this moment was just a stepping stone into the future where I would finally grasp it. I would finally, the veil would drop, everything would be clear, I would be an enlightened being. Not now though, later, right? Later that would happen. And from that space, there was this subtle feeling that I don't have it yet, that there's something more, right? Going on this healing journey, and I'm sure that many of you can relate to that, always looking, always trying to notice your thoughts, right? That's a big one. That's a big one when we get into non-duality. It's like, don't follow the thoughts, just notice them, right? Just see them, right? See that they're not you. But what are you even without the noticer? Because isn't that just a thought as well? What are you without the one that labels a thought to be a thought? What are you without the one that observes the thoughts? Because very, very subtly, this construct begins to build within this world of language that we're constantly relating to, that there's something to be gained from noticing the thoughts, right? Or that there's something to be gained from abiding in awareness, or that there's something to be gained from listening to many, many non-duality videos. Or the fixing. Once I heal my trauma, once I fully embody my senses, right? Then there'll be this shift. Then there'll be this click. And then I'll be in the good in life. Then I'll find the good in life. But up till now, I need to use this moment to get there. And in my sessions lately, I've been speaking to like a number of people recently who have like really hardcore seekers, people that have given up everything, really, and just gone into seeking full time. And they're like, I gotta get it, right? I'm doing all this meditation, I'm giving away my money, I'm healing, but it's not there yet, right? How do I get it? How do I realize the self? But what are you without the intention to realize the self? What if that's a trap as well? And so the turning point often comes for people, and myself included, I can speak about that you start to see that the good in life is here. Not in the imagined story, right? Not in some dramatic opening that comes and that just shifts everything. But in just seeing, what are you right now without needing to get somewhere, without needing to find something right now? If you go just directly to the question, what are you without the need for this moment to be different? Take away the concept of the future right now. What do you have? What remains if you don't reference the future? If you don't reference this story that the mind is seeking for of becoming? It starts to kind of unwind that narrative, right? And there's a softness. There's a feeling of calm that begins to descend into the nervous system when there's no longer this chase for things to be different. And so the realization, what I share here, and we're going to get into this, is that what you're looking for is right here in between the past and the future. You know? But the mind wants a chase. It wants to fix something. It wants to find something. It wants something better than what's here. But the mind is the very thing that is perpetuating the illusion that we're trying to get out of, that we're trying to see through on the spiritual path. And that's the confusion. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because what I found was that the good in life that I was searching for was the space that I was already in. You know? Once I relieved my mind of this idea that there needed to be some firework moment, right? Because that's just a thought. Once I sobered up from that thought, once I saw through the seeker, and this took a while, right? For some people it can be like an instant like clarity that just lasts, and I talk to people like that too. But yeah, the mind can fight with this for sure. For sure. And that's what I support people with in my sessions. And if anybody wants to come on and interact, I'm happy to guide you or to answer questions. Yeah. I got a sober from the beer. I get that. Yeah, it is like a sobriety, right? Because when you're intoxicated with the thoughts, when you're intoxicated with this illusion of becoming, with this illusion of a journey, you're like, there's this tension in the system, right? I got to get there. I'm not there yet. But take away the future right now. What are you without the future? What are you without referencing the future right now? Just in this moment, is anything missing? Can you find anything that's missing in this moment? I can't. I can find ideas, perhaps, that say that something's missing. I can find a story that says something's missing. I was in a call earlier this week with this man who I asked him that question. Is anything missing right now? We were kind of in this kind of deep space of clarity. And he goes, I think I'd like to have some chocolate right now, but other than that, nothing's missing. And I had to laugh about that. I was like, okay, fair enough. Okay, chocolate's missing, but other than chocolate, can you find a problem right now? I get it. I get the chocolate thing, yeah. Right, but if you come directly into just this directness that's already here, right, that's effortlessly here, that's effortlessly shining and radiant and full and whole and complete just as it is, doesn't need anything from you, doesn't need to be maintained, doesn't need a label, doesn't even require a journey in order to exist right now. What do you find? What do you find right here? If you just take away the references to more, to finding, right? See how all of that is future. All of that is like a subtle resistance to what is. But just don't reference that, just for a second. What are you without the reference to time in this moment? What if that's it? What if it's that simple? Because all of the problems that we are trying to sort out are because we're imagining ourselves to be this character on a timeline that needs to get something. And for those of us who are in the middle age, right, or later stages of life, or they've been seeking for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, I just have to ask you, how's that working out for you so far? Right? I spoke to another person today who'd been seeking for 20 years. And I was like, have you found it yet? Right? Because the mind was coming up with all of these doubts. No, it's not this simple. I feel calm. That's right, nothing's missing. That's right, I can't find anything else outside of this. But when's the angels gonna come down, and when am I gonna get my enlightenment badge? Right? To which I say, what are you without the concept of enlightenment right now? What are you without all your spiritual concepts right now? Right? What's here that doesn't need a spiritual concept in order to exist? Everything is simple. We are making life so much harder than it should be. Yeah, exactly. It is simple. And if it starts to feel complicated, that's not it. If it starts to feel confusing, it's only confusing for the mind that's trying to understand something. But what we're talking about is the non-conceptual, right? It can't be understood. It doesn't need to be understood, right? It's like the feeling of love, right? We all know what love feels like. Right? And the mind's like, well, how do I understand love? It's like, you don't understand it. You feel it. It's not something that you know mentally. Right? You can call it love. You can say, I feel it in my heart. You can say, oh, it makes me do these certain things. You can say it puts a smile on my face. Right? You can say it makes me do stupid things. Or beautiful things. But it's not complicated. There's nothing to know. Right? But when we take a topic as large, as encompassing, as immersive, as answering what is life, right? What am I? The mind imagines that there's this huge, complicated answer to it. Right? It imagines that there's some mystery to be solved, and Lord knows there's many, new age and spiritual and conceptual philosophical frameworks out there, channeled messages from different higher dimensional beings or aliens or streams of consciousness, claiming to be God or claiming to be some kind of higher force. Okay, I'm not saying that's not a thing. There's no rejection of any of that. And like I used to be really into the law of one. It's like multiple books of all this channeled messages with all these really complicated frameworks. And I even did this like 9-month course called I won't say the name, but it was basically just this guy who had been raised as a pastor's son, and he got onto the law of one teachings, and then he started sharing that as gospel. It was a little culty, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. And we would go and listen to him discuss every week, and there was this whole 9-month program, and but he just paralleled it with a church service. Like there'd be the sermon, there'd be like references, okay, law of one, book 2, chapter 58, like paragraph 9. Ra says this and this and this about the, the wanderers or the awakening to 4D, and here's what you have to do to be in 4D, and then you'll get ascended, and then in the next life you'll come back like in the future sometime. It's just like, what about now? Right? Am I living my life for my next life? For my future life? That's how the mind traps you, right? That's how cults and concepts trap you. That's how our entire world is brainwashed through the media and the different institutions that run this world, that program us. But it's only programming through thought, right? It's only programming through words. But words are empty, right? They're valuable tools, but there's nothing behind it. They're all made up, right? And for those of you who speak, multiple languages, you know that there's different sounds that we associate with different things. And then when you're learning the language, it's like kind of clunky and you've got to translate it to your mother tongue, and then you go back to the new language, and then soon it starts to flow, right? Soon the program of that language, that new language, starts to kind of get a groove, and you can converse with it casually. But it's just like this program that's taken, because we have this functionality of language for the mind to process these intellectual concepts through symbolic sounds, but that's all it is. It's all symbolic, right? Like, it's a symbol. What's here that's not a symbol? Right? We think of a symbol like the peace sign. Oh, that means peace, right? Peace. But that is just an association that we made. It doesn't actually mean that we created that meaning, but we're doing that with the entire language program. And then that entire language program gets its little tentacles into these, it asks about the meaning of life, and it imagines that there's an answer that it's going to get through words. But take away the words. What's here without words? Right? There's this intuitive sensing of a home, perhaps, of an authentic being, right? Of a reality that's not made up. Of a space here that doesn't actually have a problem in it right now. And I'm not saying that bad things don't happen. I'm not saying pain is not real. But I am saying that most of the problems that are stressing our lives are happening because we're living in thought. But the mind wants to hang on to that thought, and then it's like, oh, I come here, yeah, it feels nice, but what about the next? How am I going to prepare for that? How am I going to keep myself safe? We are programmed to believe that our society is so important and it's the only thing that matters. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. I just heard the other day that back in ancient times, like thousands and thousands of years ago, the people then used to speak much more metaphorically than we do now. So now we speak very literally, right? And we take these ancient teachings, like the Bible, for instance. I can speak to that. We take like the story of Adam and Eve and Noah's Ark as actual historical events, like things that actually happened, rather than just myths and legends. But in the times when these sacred books were written, and just in general, people spoke much more metaphorically. So rather than saying, I got really angry at this man and I went up and I hit him, they would say things like, the god of rage descended into my solar plexus and grew a fire and moved my body towards this man. And then, the god of pride also infiltrated into my heart and raised my arm up and caused me to hit him in the face. Right? They would speak more like that metaphorically because they saw themselves as expressions of the environment around them. Right? Nowadays, we're so individualized. We think that everything is our responsibility, that there's someone in here that needs to navigate the world that is on its own. But there's a reason, there's like every kind of expression and emotion is all either coming from the conditioning or the physical, emotional, mental constitution of the being, which can be perceived in many different systems through the 4 elements or the 5 elements. Right? There's different mental constructs that we can use to determine that. But at the end of the day, whatever reactions that the emotional system has, that the physical system has, that the thoughts have, they're just appearing, right? And so in ancient times, they saw that. They saw themselves as products of the environment, as products of just how the different, energies were moving through them, were moving through the body, and they weren't identified with it. But now we're so, because there's been all this time that's passed, where the intellect is given so much time to develop, and through that intellectual development, this I, right? This sense of I begins to feel very, very strong. But where is it right now? Take away the I right now. What if it's just been a false assumption this whole time? What if that's the spell that this entire world has been under? Because the problems really are happening in the story, in the thoughts, in the words, in the future, in the past. But what are you without all of that? There's a goodness here. You can feel it. There's a peace here. Not the idea of peace, right? But the mind overlooks it. It overlooks it because it has basically been programmed to think. And thinking is a result of the future and the past. That the past and the future is where the thoughts are. Is what the thoughts are about. But it's like, just for a moment, just experience, just remove yourself from that orientation right now. Take away all the reference points. Take away the labels. Right? Does this moment need a label? Does what you are need a label to be here right now? Because a label is just a symbol, right? It's just a metaphor. So when we go on a spiritual journey and we search for ourself, the beautiful realization at the end of it is that I was myself the whole time. Makes sense, right? I was myself the whole time. Can you find anything outside of this moment right now? We search for this concept of awakening, right? We want to wake up. But there's something here right now that's already awake. Can you sense that right now? Does this space that's here, that's awake, does it require a journey in order to be awake? Does it require sacrifice to be awake? Does it require a doing of any time, of any kind? Right? What's here that requires no effort? What's here that's already here? It's so funny sometimes. And I've been there too, you know, I was on a spiritual journey for a long time, and it's like, it's funny that like what this message really is just about directing people to that which is right here already. Right? But we're so brainwashed to think that there's something more than what's here, but anything that's more than what's here is just a thought. Right? The reality is here. It's been hiding in plain sight. It's fully exposed, right? The good is here. And I'm not saying that the moment will always feel amazing and beautiful and blissful. There can still be pain, there can still be sadness, there can still be anger, there can still be rage. But do you need the narrative about it? Do you need that second layer of distortion that comes in and tries to fix it? Because we can't change that. There's no one here to change that. But as you begin to see that resistance is futile, the I that wants to come in and continue to change something and become more or become different than what is seen as nothing more than thought, nothing more than an old program, nothing more than an expression of the past, right? Bondage, but it was only thoughts. It was only words. But you're already awake right now. So what's there to seek for? The mind seeking for this concept of awakening, concept of liberation, this idea of eternal bliss. But what I'm talking about is what's here that doesn't change. What's here that's unconditional? What's here that's not impacted by the story? It's not something that you can locate using your senses, using your faculties of the human system of sight and sound and feeling, right? It's this dimensionless, indestructible suchness, isness, freedom of what's here right now, okay? And I know I just used a lot of adjectives. And maybe I'm just in an adjective-y mood today. But also don't get hung up on any of these descriptive words that I'm using. Because ultimately, what you find is just what is, already fully exposed. Right? It's so simple. It's just, what are you without the seeker? What's here that doesn't need to be held on to? right? The mind will say, oh, I don't want to let go. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of letting go. What if something bad happens? This feels dangerous. Sometimes, anyway, it can say that. But what's there to hang on to? Right? What are you hanging on to? Other than an idea? You're afraid to let go of what? An idea about a future that's not here? That's not even something that you're hanging on. That's not even something to hang on to. And where's the I that's afraid of letting go? I mean, what's here that it's like it's trying to make something stay, but it's already here. It's trying to turn on something that's already fully on. And that's okay, right? That's part of the fun. Dust, yeah. Hey, Darren. Good to see you, man. Crazy energy. Oh, good. The message is very simple. It's really just that the spiritual journey was leading you to what's here that's not a journey. And maybe that feels a little anticlimactic. But the good news is that you can stop if you want to. Right? You can stop. The message is very simple. I finally hit that 0 point and oh my God. Yeah, exactly. And do you see how it's been here the whole time, Darren? And that's the realization. And then life goes on. It's just constantly unfolding. Thoughts can still be there. Everything can still be there. Right? This isn't about getting to a permanent state. What I'm pointing out isn't a state. It's not a state. It doesn't need to be balanced or aligned. And it's not later. Right? The good is now. Find the good in life here. Find it now. And it can feel like a process, yeah, and that's what I'm here to support people with. For those who are interested, ready. But don't wait for fireworks. Don't wait for some switch to flip. Some sudden shift. Don't wait for that. Don't wait for anything. What are you waiting for? What are you seeking for? You're alive right now. You're awake right now. Nothing's missing right now. Right? And this is the goodness that's here. This is the freedom that you discover that's always been. The freedom to be yourself, the freedom to be natural, right? To be this authentic expression of whatever's flowing through, including thoughts or challenges or even identification. But you don't need that second layer, right? That judgment. And even if that appears, that's okay too, but we're just looking at what's happening right now, right? And this is kind of the undoing that I offer in the direct pointing, is just finding clarity about what's happening now. Not getting launched into the story, into the illusion of I'm not enough and in the future I will be enough. But into the very thing that's only ever been happening here. Nothing absolutely to grasp onto. You couldn't get out of it if you tried. It's free. There's no cost to it. But the good in life isn't later. It isn't when everything's fixed. It isn't some special moment. It doesn't matter if the mind says otherwise. It's just this. It's this before the next thought. It's this with total acceptance and space for whatever is.